Hello, doing a quick recording here of Fortnite Chapter 2. We are playing on an RX 588GB paired with dual X5670 CPUs. That's a total of 12 cores and 24 threads. The system that I do have these dual CPUs in is a T5500 Dell workstation. So yeah, we've got 12 cores, 24 threads. And yeah, I'm just doing a quick recording here so you can observe the Fortnite performance. Currently we are just recording using the AMD encoder, but you can live stream at 1080p 60 frames per second with this setup, so that is always a cool option. And we're going to jump into the lake without dying, because clearly if you fall and you hit your legs on the water, you don't die. But anyways, we do have MSI Afterburner running in the top left hand corner of the screen. Hopefully that shows up for you guys. Otherwise, you can watch the frame rate counter in the top right hand corner of the screen, where you can also observe the 1% lows. And yeah, the 1% low number, if you guys are wondering, is the middle number. That is probably the most important number you will have to observe. And yeah, in the future I will be doing a video testing the streaming performance of the system. It is pretty good. You do need to play around with what kind of bitrate you want to use, just because, yeah, that is really important to allow you to play the game smoothly while delivering a really solid stream. Yeah, a couple things you may want to do is, yeah, obviously adjust your bitrate. But this here, we're just testing the performance of running a dual CPU configuration and seeing what kind of like frame time we get and how the performance turns out. But yeah, currently we're just getting around that 100 FPS mark. So yes, our RX 580 is severely bottlenecked, which isn't a huge problem. Yeah, let's get to land so we can help our teammate out here before. Shoot him! Alright, we've got one. There we go. Laser cannon them both down and pretend that we did all the work. Oh, it feels so good to be a champ. There you go. You see that performance? And yeah, it was running really nice and smooth here, which is always good. We're just around that 100 FPS mark, so yeah, this is nowhere near like a high refresh rate monitor kind of setup, but it is definitely a streamable setup. So if you were on a budget, you can easily pair this with a 60 Hz monitor and go from there. And yeah, sorry, I just had to put my buddy there on mute while we're doing the recording, and then when we're done I'll unmute him. But anyways, at the moment you can see the FPS is above 100. We're in that 120 range. You will get better frame rate if you're just running one CPU. That's just because when you're running two of them, they have to communicate to each other, as I was mentioning earlier, so it does add a little bit of latency. The nice thing about running a dual CPU configuration though, and if you're running dual CPU, it generally means that they are server grade chips. So for example, these are server CPUs, which means you can use registered memory, which means you can use a lot, like you can get your hands on a lot more memory for a lot cheaper. So those are always some great perks. And yeah, we are not going to be running a shotgun this time because I've given up on them. They're just way too hard to use. I find the submachine gun works just as well sometimes. The key is sometimes. And yeah, still maintaining around that 100 FPS average. So if we wanted, we could cap it at about I would just cap it at 120, and then you would probably get close to that 120 FPS mark for average. But yeah, capping it will just give you a more solid 1% low performance. But yeah, I'm already pretty impressed with the 1% lows. Like, they're hanging right around that 100 FPS mark. Now I'm going to leave that burst AR. We don't need it. Well, I don't need it anyways. So yeah, we're already in the circle. We might as well go across the river now before other players are here, because when we do cross the river and yeah, like the river is really cool. You're swimming and you can't shoot back at people easily. And that is a lot of fish. And I will drop all my med kits just to grab fish. And yeah, we're just crossing the river. I don't need a shotgun. I'm too good for them. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, that is pretty much the performance in a nutshell here. We are running on low settings with epic view distance, all at 1920 by 1080p. So yeah, that's pretty much the performance. I will be doing a video later testing out the next generation of CPUs in dual configuration, which are LGA 2011 CPUs. So for example, I have one system configured with two E55667s, so it is 12 cores and 24 threads again, but it is on that on that Sandy Bridge architecture. And then I will be eventually doing a video testing dual E52650 V2s, which is the Ivy Bridge generation of CPUs, and that is for 16 cores and 32 threads, which is a lot of CPU performance. And I'm pretty certain with that system we'll be able to easily stream and record our gameplay simultaneously while playing really smoothly. And that's something I do want to test out. And yeah, the biggest thing with the systems, like these server grade systems, is to make sure you have good CPU cooling. So for example, I've added an additional 2 fans near the CPU heatsinks so that the CPU temps stay low. Because you can see right now we're only at like 19% load on the CPU. That's because we have 2 of them. And yeah, the temperature on the one is about 45 degrees, which is very cool. Like my ambient temperature is probably about 22 degrees or something, or 20 degrees, maybe even 19. So it is pretty cold. But yeah, probably not 19. It's probably like more like 22, something like that is my guess. Yeah, it runs really nice and smooth. The frame rate will vary depending on where you are on the map. Like I know around these water areas, kind of gets a little bit lower, but yeah, it's kind of like 60 FPS is a good like FPS you'd want to have, or like what most consoles play at. 80 FPS is giving you, like, I'd say it's a lot smoother than 60 because you get about 33% extra frames, and then anything above 80 is kind of bonus if you want to be streaming and stuff with this kind of system. So it's like here on the lowest we're at 60, and I have 60 hertz, well we're at about 80, and I have a 60 hertz monitor, so it all works out good. Oh, we're swimming upstream. Swimming upstream makes no sense, unless this is downstream, I can't tell. But yeah, that is the performance here. Maybe we'll get into some combat, and after we get into combat, then I will end the recording. But otherwise, yeah, that pretty much summarizes what you can kind of expect with this dual Xeon build. And, oh yeah, we were going to get into some performance. Oh, these are not real players. But anyways, I'm going to end the recording there. If you guys do have any questions, feel free to let me know. Thanks.